I think the one thing I would like people to know and talk about more is how great our immigration system is. I want to put my name on this that I think it's one of the best in the world, given all of its aims and goals. I think what people don't understand about immigration is that it touches on every aspect of what you call life. So there are an incredible amount of criminals, terrorists, money laundering from all over the world that wants to enter the US, invade US, harm US citizens. So government agencies and partnering agencies all have to be involved. The CBP officer at the airport, they are partially immigration officers as well, but they have to inspect drugs and agriculture and all sorts of stuff like that. So criminal aspect of immigration is very, very much important. Humanitarian aspect. The US led the treaty after World War II to allow for if there's persecution and based on race, religion, gender. If you are suffering persecution, we will welcome you. Right after World War II, think about the disaster that happened. Well, we're part of that treaty that we led. Well, now migrants are coming to our border. Do we turn them away? Right? There's the humanitarian aspect of international law. And then there's the economic part. Department of Labor. We can't let everybody in because then US people would be without jobs. For any US citizen or lawful permanent resident, if you think it's hard to get a job now, if US immigration law is just relaxed a little bit, floods of immigrants come in will take your job easily overnight. So you have no idea the extreme amount of privilege you have to be able to get jobs by being virtue of a US citizen. Like there's so much bandwidth that's helping you. But there's the Department of Labor that is integral in part of that. And then CDC, right, is heavily involved with that. COVID happened. Who's allowed to come in? Who's not allowed to come in? So, and there's religion and constitutional rights. You are a member of a particular faith and you want to practice that. You want to be a missionary. Do we allow missionaries to come here? Do we allow missionaries to leave? There's so much involved in that. And US universities would not be as rich as it is this past decade. I would probably venture to say in the past 10, 15 years, major US universities, I want to say the top 100, top 200 universities in the US got twice as profitable in wealth and assets because of international students, because of the amount of tuition they pay. And so our university standing, the ability for us to do research and then propel the US government and economy is in turn based on a lot of the tuition international students pay. And so I think when people complain about immigration or don't know about immigration, you just don't know how intricate it is connected to everything else in what we call life.
And that those takeaways are you have the humanitarian aspect, you have the economic aspect for business and jobs, you have the criminal aspect, there is the academic aspect, people being in schools, and then you could say the family life aspect too, people that you're related to, that you fall in love with, et cetera, underpinning, which are massive, massive buckets of what makes the country exist and how it runs and all of the complicated things around that. It's interesting actually. Your point. I'm just going to speak about the students where, after getting out of grad school, there were friends of mine who were here on visas, and from the bit that we talked about it, it was really the first time I kind of registered the amount of extra paperwork and the number of extra hurdles they had to jump through in order to get certain jobs and certain lines of work, at least in my particular field, that were effectively off limits to them based on the type of visa they would have had to have gotten in order to get that type of job, which I had, sort of never really considered before. And that was, again, me from the sort of the academic economic slant of that sort of, that part of the whole picture, which I didn't even think about. Like, I didn't know what an O1 visa was for. I think that's the one for arts and culture, right? I think O1.
Yeah.
I think it's R1.
Sort
Yeah. That's the one, at least in my neck of the woods, people talk about a lot. The O1 visa for, doing monumental things for arts and culture. So please give me a visa.
Yes.
The way that immigration is talked about in the public sphere that you find is sometimes, again, simplistic, misleading? Is there maybe a different do you have a different angle on how you find immigration talked about in the public sphere versus in like the daily life, people on the street kind of sphere? Or is it about the same as kind of what you just said?
I think it's generally the same. I think the one thing I would like people to know and talk about more is how great our immigration system is. That's something you almost never hear
I
about,
never hear
but
that. Yeah.
which is truly remarkable. And again, I want to put my name on this, that I think it's one of the best in the world, given all of its aims and goals. And so if people can know the benefits that it brings, as broken as it is, the benefits that it brings, that I think that would change the narrative a little bit more. Doesn't mean it shouldn't be fixed. It definitely should be fixed, but we're fixing a
But
great
it's
thing.
actually like life could be a lot worse than it currently is.
Oh yeah.
I think that's a great note to end on, because I would say the same thing. I don't think I